OG who's starting what is it? OG who's first? Oh, Alex. She. Oh, who's first?
No preference.
The nice combo.
We ask anything.
Who's going from car?
Any you can pick. Anything you pick. Seriously, let you pick. You pick now. No, it's easier. Just pick. Who you want to pick?
Calvin. I can someone eat.
I want to go after the Asian guy.
Someone eat it.
Okay.
This house believes that. This house believes that what? As Asian, is it?
As an Asian actor.
Yeah, bro.
I just wanted to find it.
This house believes that all Asian actors should.
All ethnicities.
Of all.
Hey, come.
This debate is already go back in because you guys are already asking me what emotion is.
Okay, this house believes that Asian actors of all ethnicities should unequivocally support Crazy Rich Asians.
Alright. Shh. I will call this house order, my name is Allison, go. Right. Without further ado, emotion about Crazy Rich Asians, I pop on the prime minister start
So in my head, when I saw this motion, what I imagined it was like a little Asian congregation in the middle of white Hollywood and all its blasting science and all its glamour and fame. And I feel like the reason why that this is a very good image to have in your head. Perhaps because I'm Chinese, or perhaps because I'm Malaysian, perhaps because I'm a minority. But it's good to have because I feel like it's a form of like all these Asians coming together and saying that this is a movie that we all want to support, not only for us, but for the larger community of the Asian Americans as well when it comes to the stereotypes and the main struggles that they face in America, and also about the Southeast Asians regarding Singapore, Malaysia, and how the Western Asians also generally view us. I think when it comes to a few problems we've highlighted, one, people or progress within Hollywood when it's not celebrated, what happens? Second, what happens when there's no support and Asian representation and which direction will you go? And third, where do you get more fame and more money? Right? So what do we mean by support? By support, we mean like verbal support, such as like saying like, oh, they've done great, they've done good, you can lie through your teeth if you want, like if that's really necessary. I think second is also like more compliments and like the idea of like saying like giving good ratings, for example, online, and like telling everyone like this is a movie that I really like and really support, and how everything has a really nice plot and how it's based on an actual Asian Singaporean man who wrote the novels, right? It's to always sell the selling points of the movie. So goes to my idea of like perfect representation. So what we on-site government burden is to first prove like why do all Asian actors need to do this for the betterment of themselves, and second, as to why the idea of giving good compliments or even through like verbal support will be the best thing ever that happens to all Asian Americans. Now, as much as we want to have a perfect representation of all cultures and all ethnicities, honestly, this is a step-by-step process, and I think it's the end goal of each debate as like to which house can actually prove like why the perfect representation to the closest as it is more achievable on our side. So first, why do all Asians need support no matter in regardless of your ethnicity or how you're portrayed in a movie? First, we talk about the idea of representation, right? This movie is the one that makes or breaks it in the market. The main reason why is because as we have known, like history of Hollywood is very white, very like fair, mostly American, mostly all their struggles.
Yeah.
There was never an actual highlight on how powerful the Southeast Asians are when it comes to terms with dealing with business and how far we've come. And I think secondly, ideas as well as for the chunks of Asian Americans or Americans or Asians as well to break into the market, such as Michelle Yeoh, Henry Golding, and all sort of people, right? There's a first all Asian main cast that is brought from all over Asia and scouted all over. The fact is that a lot of companies have put in a lot of financial investment as a precursor to the understanding of like how this movie will eventually turn out. This means when it comes to Asian actors particularly, they have more influence within the industry because they have more like networks with the directors and powerful people and whatnot. And therefore, it is then a moral obligation for them to then support this movie because one, if you do not support it and you remove all forms of and say your honest opinion or like you want to say like because it portrays the Indians or Sikhs wrongly, hence we have to go against it, is first, you're actually removing more opportunity for people of Asian ethnicities or more so even your own ethnicity. Let's understand this. The reason why this motion was here was because like some people honestly forget who were the real oppressors. Like they suddenly realized that like when it comes to Asian Americans or like the Chinese majority where we are fairer and more likely to be favored, a lot of people assume that like just because of this and we are treated wrongly means that all these things have failed. But the one thing we have to understand is to first also appreciate the idea of progress where Asians of also minority classes and ethnicities were actually represented, right? Secondly, is that you also help penetrate the idea and have a better fight when it comes to focusing on representation. It's time to kiss up the ass of the Asian Americans and also the Chinese people if they were to be the next more likely casted people. It's because these people wanted to care for you afterwards once they get the representation. When there's more directors being Asian, when there's more directors understanding that Asian casts need to be helped, then we need to ask ourselves, which sort of Asians do we need to now help the most? Because when it comes to the unifying front of an Asian congregation or minority, this means that one, we are more likely able to destroy stereotypes of Asian Americans and Asians overall, that we can be rich and powerful and Asian men are sought after as well. And secondly, it also becomes a stepping stone to increase the exposure of other cultures to the TV screens. More so, understanding that the feedback and curiosity of a new country honestly just incites a lot more excitement and the idea of scouting and casting for all these local celebrities means that more of our local celebrities who we understand who made it to the top, who work their hard asses off, tears, sweat, and blood all day long to be able to not only bring us pride, but to also bring us to the international realm of Hollywood, means that all these opportunity and chances will be mitigated and significantly lessened if we forget that the real oppressors of Hollywood are the white people. Right for that? Yes.
There is already a prevalent and pre-existing stereotype that East Asians are moral minorities and therefore are already rich and successful. Why do we need to portray that again?
So the main reason why is because I think when it comes to East Asians being represented, even if we were not powerful or whatever, there was still a lot of stereotypes regarding us and how we are poor, how indigenous tribes to live in jungles, how even if Singapore were to be on the same par or developed country, people still won't recognize them as developed. People will recognize them as developing or like less capable compared to like China or the US or all these Eurasian or all these countries. Henceforth, we have to then understand that all these Southeast Asian countries, even if they're minority, needs a boost up to become the next powerful person in line and the next wanted cast. So in the next wanted cast, they're more likely to also sort out all these other ethnicities to be able to understand that Asians band together, right? So secondly, when I say that when it comes to why the unifying front of Asian is very important, it's because one, if the minority of people are the less favored, for example, the Sikhs and the Indians, they need more power, they need more powerful people on their side to be able to realize their own dreams. And also realizing this, that because a lot of people dumped a lot of money in the movie through marketing, that they're supporting that they need to be is positive, or this support also leads to positive trickle-down effects. The reason why, if the absence of Asian support leads to a splintered and more crippled Asian congregation, means that progress for the crazy rich Asians couldn't make it without it. This means that the progress for the other Asians within these minorities will not be able to make it as far as you want them to be. It is just because, one, when we understand that like when a lot of people have dumped money into this idea that the trickle-down effect will be true because more Asians will more likely take care of each other when we understand that we are the only safe space or echo chamber within the white Hollywood. When it comes to understanding who our real enemies are, let's understand it was the whites who still wanted to cast this movie through the Asian lens of this Chinese individual and of their own lenses as well, instead of just saying like we are casting through an all Asian lens, and this is why we have to change. Thank you.
I will take the answer for speech. Not about
every social movement fighting for the justice of minorities often start from the most privileged people within that minority group before trickling down towards less privileged people. Opening opposition is living in a fantasy land where they think that the underprivileged minorities who are invisible to the public can immediately be visible to the public, especially through Hollywood, which is privileged in itself already. That fantasy land cannot exist. They did not respond to our case. 3 broad issues in this speech. Firstly, why it's impossible to attain the gold standard perfection of perfect representation, and we're going to engage with their idea of misrepresentation. Secondly, why this creates a perception of splintering within Asian actors or from diverse ethnicities, and why that harms Asian actors as a whole in Hollywood. And thirdly, why this is the option, the best option and the only option we have, why we have a moral obligation to support this, because absent of this, we do not have anything. First issue, why this is just impossible to reach the gold standard. I think opening opposition saying that we should put a perfect, crazy burden on an absolutely perfect representation of Singaporean society is literally impossible. In fact, even if you want to make this to literally every single country of the world, it is always impossible, right? Even Star Wars, which was credited for having a lot of minority actors in The Last Jedi, had a lot of issues surfacing up, right? It shows that the idea of perfect representation is almost impossible to reach, because at the point in which you think you reach that status, some other issues would pop up. The issues would always evolve from time to time, putting such a high burden on, quote, the first all-Asian Hollywood cast is immensely crazy, and I don't think that's going to be effective under your side. Well, thank you. Secondly, they told us that this nitpicks the riches, because not all Asians live like that. Yeah, but we don't contend that either. Look at there's a satirical tone to crazy rich Asians. I don't think people are stupid enough to believe that everyone in Singapore is billionaires, right? If that really happens, you are really I don't know what those kind of things are, right? I don't think people would believe that literally every single Singaporean will subjugate the poor, and we would even pause it. The crazy rich Asians show how the rich in Singapore subjugate the lives of the poor and look down on them. I think that is crucially important in understanding the status of some Asian countries. No, thank you. Second, they told you that this negates the struggles of other Asians who are not rich and not Chinese. But clearly we told you there's a moral obligation, right? Even if you're a less successful Asian actor, you have a moral obligation. You know that this is not a representation of your life. You know that this is not perfect and it's probably quite distorting, but it's the only boat you have right now, because you know that all the benefits that we told you about trickling down in the future would happen to you, right? Billy Wong didn't just started having a big role. It came from small roles further, right? Also, I think the accents part is just, I'm being nitpicky here, but the accents part of their case is just non-contentious, because the movie has a satirical tone and it wants to show that there are Asians who are incredibly whitewashed, especially very rich Asians, right? You can't just say this is accent or whatsoever. And the whole whitewashing stuff, I think is just weird, because you need to get the whites to watch your movie first. If you don't get that, you're not going to be successful in Hollywood. Secondly, I think the POI coming from opposing opposition was really good extension, right? Model minority. We will say that, yes, but this shows the issues of what happens when you have a model minority mindset of a specific ethnicity. Note that a lot of people, if they really have the perception that these groups of people are model minority, they always assume that these groups are perfect from the start, right? That they do not have any familial problems, right? I think Crazy Rich Asians show the ramifications of having model minority imposed by whites and contorted by them towards Asian people, right? Because they literally understand that, holy crap, doing this actually meant a lot of pressure to even marry whoever they want. They can't even do that. I think the narrative in Crazy Rich Asian shows that. Lastly, we would flip this idea. When they say that this is not representative of Singapore, we will say that given the satirical vibe in Crazy Rich Asians, it is a representation of Singapore. We argue that Singapore right now is incredibly Chinese dominated, right? The fact that it shows so many Chinese in position of power in Singapore is indicative of how Chinese people in Singapore dominate literally every single sector in society. Given that, we must support this as Asian actors, because it shows that there are Asian countries who are struggling to incorporate people of other ethnicities, and that in a lot of cases, certain ethnicities dominate the entire narrative. So it's a perfect representation from a satirical viewpoint. Before that, sure.
So you make a strange argument. If it's true that people would believe inaccurate representations, what's the point of an Asian American movie? What's the point of celebrating Crazy Rich Asians to begin with?
No, we should celebrate first because of all the arguments we told you. Secondly, I don't think people will immediately get confused, right? To the extent to which the first step that will happen was they would probably try to understand the movie even more. Note that nobody know a lot of people didn't really know where New Zealand is until until Lord of the Rings came out and more people search on that. This is probably, we're going to have the same effect in Singapore as well, where people would realize that, oh, I didn't hear of this country yet. I'm going to think of it right now. Probably search out in Singapore and realize, well, the country is more ethnically diverse than what the movie shows it. So that's a benefit that we get as well. Secondly, perception of splintering within Asian actors. Know that loads of money is being pumped by Hollywood, who is willing to fund the first ever all-Asian cast in terms of a Hollywood movie. If the Asian groups of people and different ethnicities are going to fight over this just single first movie, they are less likely to fund us in the future. Firstly, it will always be seen as a fruitless investment because it will always be seen as a PR failure. Hollywood investing in a Chinese-centric movie will always get a lot of critiques that probably make Hollywood, people will say Hollywood is doing a bad investment. Secondly, we would argue that in the worst case, they would not fund at all, right? Because there's a perception that you cannot satisfy the entire Asian community or the entire community of Asian actors. We argue that those are far worse when the benefits do not trickle down to future movies. And also note the benefit of trickling down when the movies in the future improve in the long term. They don't get that. They don't even get the representation or the improvement of that because your first step has already failed. Lastly, why this is the only option we have. Know that you need to provide us with an alternative. If there's no other all-Asian movies for us to band together with, what is your alternative? It's literally nothing, right? This is the first ever movie, all-Asian cast, and we know that often, monumental movies often make changes in the long run to benefit those kind of ethnicities in the long term. Given this, you have a moral obligation to support something that is proven to trickle down towards you in the future. And if you do not do that, you are then morally culpable for the crippling of Asian representation in Hollywood. Very proud of the boys.
I think we have a speech now for the freedom of opposition about the house. Yeah, we go.
The only thing that's crazy about Crazy Rich Asian is how ignorant the movie has been when it comes to the nuances of not just Asian demographics, but even the ones in Singapore. In terms of how it glorifies the power, the idea of wealth that should have been questioned, in terms of stereotyping certain groups of people and generalizing the way that they should behave. I don't think, even if, let's say, I were to concede it gives some form of benefits, all supports should be directed to it. I think it's true that on that side, they want progress. Progress happens better when you have discussion, when you have criticism, when you realize that there's a need for improvement, which they cannot get in their world if everyone is on the same page, or people who are the most influential in that field is trying to get other people to be on the same page. Let's take a look at the burden of government in general. Note that because of the wording of this motion, literally, they have to prove that all of the ethnicities, these actors of different ethnicities, must support without any form of criticism and whatnot, right? I think it's just fair, but it's easier on the opposition side to just prove. If we can prove to you why some form of counter narrative is necessary, we can take that particular debate. What is not going to change in both worlds? I think in both worlds, people will still view the movie for various reasons. It's not because it has support, but because a lot of people talk about it. And I think you can get a lot of people to talk about, even if it's in the form of criticism, even in the form of controversy. That means people will be exposed to that particular movie. But what we change specifically on the opposition bench is in what lens do you view that movie? Are you going to view it with a perception that this is a great movie and only see the great things? Or are you going to view it in a way that are more careful as to what kind of nuances should you condone, what kind of nuances that you should not accept. And secondly, how do people react to this particular movie when they see it? Are they going to glorify it, or are they going to question the things that needed to be questioned? And thirdly, what do they do after they watch this movie? Moving forward, what kind of steps are you going to take? Are you just going to support it? Are you going to do anything about it? Or are you going to try to push for more things? And these are exactly the three things I would imperative as to why is it important? Because of these three steps of how you view that particular movie, you should not have full support from that particular actress. But before that, three rebuttals I want to make. First, onto the whole idea that movies will never be perfect.
Their line of logic was, let's not try at all. Because they're afraid somehow in their world, people are not going to make movies the moment call-outs happen. If they want to use Star Wars as an example, I think throughout history, you've seen a lot of people calling out Star Wars movie. They call out superhero movie for being sexist or being racist. We don't see them stopping production. What they did instead was they made more of that movies that is more inclusive. And then when you point out all this shortcoming, you also encourage directors to come in and fill out those gaps, those needs that people voice out in terms of needing representation or needing a more accurate representation. That means in our world, we're more likely going to get incentives to not just create another Asian movie, but an Asian movie with more inclusivity and better representation. I don't see why we would not even want to create or invest in Asian movies. They also want a niche market to tap into. They also want viewer base that they want to accommodate to. It's quite illogical to buy that particular argument from them. Even if I would rather not have a movie that misrepresent and create wrong norms and wrong stereotypes on Asians, because those are the things that are very hard to reverse, very hard to change the moment that norms are established. Like, look at how much we have to do to break the norm that not all Russians are bad, or like not all Chinese should be evil, or like not all black people should be evil. Given that these are also the minorities, if it's true, it's very difficult for them to reverse those things. And I think it's better to live in a world whereby even if, let's say, that movie might have some white people in it, as long as they have accurate representation, that's a better trade-off than their world. Because the kind of Asian that they wanted to protect in that world are not even the good kinds. These are the people who just make fun of others who don't fit in their whitewashed norms, who don't live up to that particular standard. We would rather accept that. But thirdly, onto the whole idea that, oh, people are going to be fine when they view these things. They're not going to be convinced that all Singaporeans are billionaires. True. But the kind of impression that you set is the impression that there's lack of problems in that area, that these people can somehow still be well off because they have some billionaires in their world. You create a red herring that takes away discussion in the nuances that needed to be discussed most, because people are just too busy glorifying like how cute that actress is, or like how woke this movie supposedly is. Going into my arguments, yes.
How will quarreling between Asian actors make you, from a minority, more favorable or to be able to get a job in Hollywood?
One, it doesn't necessarily have to be a quarrel. I think a criticism does not have to be an argument. Criticism can also look like a proper discussion. That's possible. But the fact that you are an Asian that claims that something is wrong and you believe in a bigger value means you're also an Asian actress that people will probably want to like bring in their movies, because people generally, everyone's on the race to be the most woke production, like create the more representative, more inclusive movies. And I think they can still get their job that way. Into my argument, right? The kind of lens, how do you view this movie? If let's say in a world where all your actor and actress from the Asian that you believe speaks on behalf of your people says this is a good movie. That means when you watch this movie, you are more likely going to overlook all the bad problems that happen, because you're just on the lookout of what's good about it, what's true. And you also wanted to join the bandwagon of everyone celebrating that movie rather than actually criticizing the problems that happen. Why is it important? I think the first step in trying to get progress is you have to make sure people realize and would want to speak about this. Because only when a lot of people are speaking against it, you create that social capital for directors to actually tap into, because they want to please this group of people. But if this group of people doesn't exist, whatever progress you want in your world, you cannot get that. And I think that also goes the same analysis also applies in the way you react to that particular movie. When you move forward, are you going to be complacent about this movie? Are you just going to create something that's similar, or would you want to be better? Would you want to improve? I don't think improvement or any form of like changes is going to happen in their world if we're okay with this type of representation. Or anyone who tries to speak against these things are going to be shut down and drowned out by the huge glorification that happens in the world that they want to support. Because now it will become unpopular to criticize this movie, given that all actors and actresses are okay with this. What's even worse is we're talking about Asian actor and actress, the people who we deem knows best for what our people. This is literally like having a woman saying misogynistic stuff, right? People will assume, if an Asian is okay with this, you should be okay with this too, because they probably know things better. They're probably speaking about the good. They're probably like saying the right thing. It is a problem. But it's not just that, right? This is not an actor debate. This is rather a debate about what kind of moral value that actor should take. I think as an actor, it is quite immoral for you to support a movie that disregards the nuances within your ethnicity, because you claim to be the actor that representative of your community, but at the same time, you're supporting a movie that disregards the nuances of your own people. We think that's not the kind of stance that we should allow this actress or these actresses to take in the first place. With that, OO takes the debate.
Can I go to the washroom? please.
Okay, let's all take a piece. Yeah, please.
Quickly.
Really? So I agree with like one sentence that Selene said thus far. She said this is a value judgment debate. But like value judgment debates differ, or the values that you should fight for differ based on the lens that you look at it from. So the lens that we look at it from in this particular debate are the actors, right? I think there's insignificant amount of discussion on these actors themselves. So like basically there are a few words in the motion that suggest that a debate should go a particular way. Let me point it out. They say that Asians of all ethnicities should like support on our side, and like obviously the diametrically opposed position of support is condemned. I think they're happy to do. The big question that we need to answer is like why? Like I don't think the op bench gave me good enough of a reason. Like why should I feel sad, right? That I as an Indian never appeared in Crazy Rich Asian. It's like why should I feel sad that I didn't appear in like Hidden Dragon, Crouching Tigers? Maybe because I don't speak the language, I look out of place, the movie about, Chinese people in China practicing Kung Fu. I don't know that stuff, right? It's completely normal for them to want to hire Chinese people. So basically, right, this is our goal of the debate. If we can prove to you that the actors gain a benefit across the board, and if like maybe on a long shot, and I think it's a long shot, that the communities themselves get some form of benefit, it's okay, right? So what's the model like? So basically, like in our obviously it's in the capacity of actors. So like they'll tweet about this movie. So like you have Indian actors, right? Like Priyanka Chopra. I have Hollywood actors like Dhanush. They like tweet it out like this amazing movie, 10 out of 10. Everyone should go check it out. Then people like India will go check it out. People in Malaysia for India to check it out, and that's what we want on our side. Comparatively on their side, they'll be like, this is a shit movie, this one sentence, this movie is really bad, or my person was not represented on their side. So basically, they want active shaming. And I'll tell you that active shaming oftentimes causes backlash or dislike to you. So that is what the op supports. And it's then interesting, because my uncle used to tell me this, right? The reason Indian people will never succeed in life, right, is because when someone does better than us, right, instead of us working harder and doing better than them, right, we try to pull them down, And this is just like a crap theory. Like I don't understand, right? Just because they make a good movie and they get huge amounts of viewership, I must be angry at their success. But they never like oppress me to get the success, right? Like Chinese people and Indian people got oppressed by like the same white person, right? The opium trade and slavery. Like we got sent to like all the other countries to tap rubber. We're both victims here. Then like Kelvin can ask a damn good question, It's like, oh, but the Asian only got the model minority. They work hard for it, man. Can you imagine going to Princeton and Yale, working hard, studying hard, learning the piano and violin? Then people say you must have the Indian also. It's not a Chinese sport, right? Delhi is the capital of rape in the status quo, right? Or Indian people are shit, right? And in many other places, right? They did not like steal money from us or anything for them to owe us something. And that's basically what you need to take note of in this debate. Like if you're all minorities, right? Why must the other minority care about you, bro? They're all in the rat race together, right? That's basically what they needed to answer. Why must we pull each other down? Why must we make each other movie say it's shit, it's not good, don't go watch. Here's like one line of criticism, I don't like this part. Like why, brother? Like what is it? Like nothing, Like, sure, like a big security guard. Sure, I can be like, back now, Indian people security guard. You go to public schools, the value is Indian guy. They have a problem with reality, you know. Like I think debating is going that way, unfortunately. So basically, right, what we want as outcomes, we have three key outcomes. Number one, on which side the actor gets more money, more airtime, and more freedom. This is actors of all ethnicities. Secondly, we want to tell you that exclusion does not equal oppression, you know. Like this is what Ryan is trying to say. That Thor, right, only speaks to Nordic people, or Iron Man only speaks to billionaire playboy philanthropists, you know, like I watch Iron Man, I don't get what's going on. That's not true, right? Like we can all appreciate Iron Man, we can all appreciate Thor. Basically, it's what the movie was trying to achieve, what? So like Marvel tried to achieve, tell us superheroes are real and you should be a better person. Crazy Rich Asian tried to achieve what? Asian people are not savages, they don't like eat with their feet, they don't like walk around like shorts, they're actually like decent people, you know, they can do decent things. We don't think that's a problem with the narrative whatsoever as an Indian person, you know. Like you don't have to take me out with you, bro. Like me go and ask Alex Mom, can you give me a scholarship because you gave a doctor's scholarship? She'll be like, what the fuck are you, bro? Like that's basically what I'm trying to say here, right? So how do we get more money? Number one, right, we should tell each other to watch each other's movies. It's a damn good thing. I share you, you share me, you know, like cow team, you know, like this, that me and Jordan lah. Whenever he give a good argument, I say, damn good argument, brother. You do the same for me. Then we line together, but people all think Mitra and Jordan give good arguments. Okay, that's a simplified version. How will this transpire in real life, right? So clearly, when your movies get more viewership, right, that means the American markets, Hollywood now notice, right, that there is profit to be made in ethnic markets. Like Black Panther gave us that, right? Like now every black person can get a job in the movie industry because Black Panther is majority black and they acted quite well. Now they try with Chinese people, get a lot of money. Next they try with Indian people, and not like Indian people never had success, you know. Like, you know, Jaipo, there was no like, what's the movie? There was Slumdog Millionaire. There's no Chinese guy there. We did the Chinese people upset, oh my god, why wasn't there like a Chinese guy in the slums of India? Because there's no Chinese guy in the slums of India. Like, you want us to be like fake, is he like put him there, insert him there, say he's the one who gave the money. You know what? That never happened, what, bro? Like it's basically what? Like why you want him to be there? Like, secondly, how we create interest in ethnic markets. So I've already proven to you that, like, you know, there's spillover and like more people be interested in like investing in ethnic markets because it's getting success, right? And we can all deny it together. So basically, right, we share each other's shit, right? We like my community will watch his stuff, his community will watch my stuff. We both watch each other's stuff, right? The numbers double, we gabong together. Then like American people are like, oh my god, we can sell a movie in China and India if we just start putting China and India people because they watch together. Like I mean it sounds simplistic, but like, you know, on an individual level, when more and more people want to be curious about other movies because someone tweeted about it, right? It generally helps each other. Yes, I take 1 because 6.
Just because you support the majority Asian doesn't mean they will return by supporting minority. If anything, they don't have any incentive.
Okay, that's correct. So like, on a likelihood, who's more likely to get support? Me that tweeted him, would he want to tweet me back? Maybe not, right? But you who slam him, you know, say shit, the movie shit, I don't like the movie, it's a 3 out of 10, don't go watch it, it never represent me. Then you're not going to make a friend, right? Why would he, like, you know, support you? Maybe he'll tell you the same thing later, what? It's like simple basic dynamics, right? Secondly, right, how exclusion is not oppression, you know. Like this basically, like Indian people have Hollywood and Bollywood together, and we're bigger than Hollywood, you know. So maybe we don't give a damn about your movies, you know. You can make whatever you want, life. Okay, we make our own money. Maybe we can help each other. But lastly, I think this is where it's very important here on how actually, right, we would, on an individual level, give the Chinese and Indian people in like Malaysia and Singapore something to talk about. Imagine if like we all watch the same movie, and we often see this with Harry Potter, you know. Then when you meet someone who's also read Harry Potter and watch Harry Potter, you immediately have a connection. So basically, we should focus on our commonalities instead of our differences, right? So we all watch Crazy Rich Asian. It was the movie of our generation, right? We'll talk to each other about it. At least we have a topic of conversation to get to know each other. On your side, right, it's basically the crab story. We all put each other down. The guy that wins is the white man.
I think the federal government position.
As an Indian actor who probably has to go through the indignity of being referred to as an apnene in Singapore. I think it's absolutely horrendous for us to defend a world where they are constantly represented in such indignity all the time in these movies. In my speech, I'm going to do 4 things. The first, I'll talk about why the Asian movie scene will be fine in Hollywood, and this is to largely mitigate the benefits that we'll largely talk about in the both gov benches. Secondly, I'm going to talk about, since we are fine, what do we do next to get better? And I'll nuance the analysis about how we can create virtue signaling for people to create market demand for more representation, trying to engage the world that apparently there's no such thing as perfect representation. Thirdly, I'll talk about what will happen in their world that is harmful. And lastly, I'll do an even if scenario. Even if Hollywood stops making movies that are Asian in nature, why is it that this is not too bad, right? So first, why will the Asian movie scene be fine? Especially given Crazy Rich Asians, and why we should be allowed to criticize Crazy Rich Asians. 3 reasons. The first, Crazy Rich Asians is a box office success. It has made 3 times the amount of money that they expected to make. What this is that it's an evidence of viewership and people willing to buy tickets for Asian representation. Producers only need to know that it's profitable for them to continue making such movies. They don't need to know that everyone will unequivocally love it, right? And I think therefore they will continue to make movies as such. The second thing is that Hollywood already loves you Chinese fuckers. They've already romanticized Chinese people because of their high socioeconomic status, because of how successful they are, and also because of the Chinese market in general, right? Hollywood loves the Chinese markets these days. That's why when it started with the Warcraft movie that did really, really well in China, they continue with movies like The Great Wall, where Matt Damon was acting in order to represent a Chinese cultural event, which means East Asian representation is pretty good so far in Hollywood. The third thing is that even if you don't have all that, the vast majority of people still like Crazy Rich Asians, right? So we would say that some dissent to a movie is normal. The government here has to defend this strange world that all of them have to unequivocally support it, which I think is bad for movies in general. So second question, since we are fine, what do we do next? I think firstly, actors dissenting is key to change market demand. First reason why is because this creates virtue signaling. You, as an Indian actor, have to let people know that there is a problem in the representation of Indians in Hollywood movies. In order for people, once people know that, that's when they're more likely to fight for more representation. That's when they're more likely to be aware that they are being screwed over in these movies. The second thing is that it's hard for people to criticize Crazy Rich Asians and their representation of their community when their own actors think it's fine, right? There'll be no discussions whatsoever. Thirdly, it's just disheartening for some people to see their favorite Indian actor just support a movie that just makes them look like shit. Second reason why, on what we should do next, right? I think it's important to recognize that it's principally abhorrent to expect actors like myself to celebrate a movie that makes communities look like, I'm not an actor, I'm a beat that makes communities look like shit. That makes our community look like shit, right? And by the way, they have to defend a world where all of them unequivocally support. So at least in our world, we can still have people who say, Crazy Rich Asians was generally a progressive movie, it was pretty great, but here are some problems, some drawbacks, some setbacks that we can work on. This is how we improve as a society, guys. Thirdly, I think Asian American movies are just going to be more shit in the long run, right? Why is this so? Because if you have to unequivocally support a movie, you can't criticize the technical aspects or failures of the movie as well, right? So the plot line, cinematography, things that make movies great, if you can't criticize it, then those movies don't get better. The Asian directors don't get better at making movies. In the long run, they lose money. So the third question, what will happen in their world? Here I want to make some responses first. They say that it's impossible to create perfect representation. So I think we can create a market demand for it, as I mentioned earlier. But secondly, even if it's impossible to create perfect representation, surely it's still possible to push against some negative representations, right? Like a really dirty, uncapped security guard in Crazy Rich Asians being such a misleading identifier of the Indian community in Singapore. They also say that people won't believe the inaccurate representations of people in these movies, right? Because they will research the movie. People don't do this. If I watch Transformers, why the hell would I want to Google what the society demographics in America is after watching Transformers, right? I couldn't care less if there were Latinos. I don't see why people want to Google such things to begin with. Secondly, even if it's a good representation of Singapore, firstly, it's not. Like, what the fuck? Like, Indian people are not just security guards in Singapore. Like, they want part of the successful banking sector in Singapore. Like, a bunch of them are Indian. Plus, ask Aditya Mitra. Secondly, CG agrees to this, right? This CG's argument as well. I think even if it's realistic, right, we should be arguing about what the world should be and not how the world is. So even if we can unrealistically dignify some ethnicities, we absolutely should do so through those movies. I will take opening.
Given the satirical vibe in Crazy Rich Asians, isn't it a representation of the oppression that the Chinese majority in Singapore subjects in minority?
Wait, no one realizes the representation of oppression. No one could give a fuck that people are being oppressed in Singapore. So even if that's what they intended, that's not what's happening in terms of how people perceive the movie. Third question. No. Give it to John. What will happen in their world? So the first is that fans will become complacent because of the lack of virtue signaling, because of the inability to criticize such movies. What this means is that producers will continue to think it's profitable and keep hiring Chinese fellas because there's no reaction for it, and the East Asian American or East Asians are the best representations in movies. In fact, the Eurasian East Asians, right? So I think that they will make it more palatable to white audience. But secondly, I think and this is a significant harm as well, right? You homogenize all Asian people again to be all the same, right? There's no such thing as South Asians. There's no such thing as Indians in like Asia. And this is absolutely toxic mentality that's been going on for years, and it's absolutely dangerous. On top of that, they will say that all Asians are the same and they also have the same opinion, which is absolutely horrible, right? We should be able to dissent against the representation of Chinese Chinese people in those movies, especially if it's toxic to other ethnicities. In order to fight those stereotypes, we need to be able to dissent. Lastly, even if Hollywood stops making movies, why is this not bad? Because this allows local film industries to come out, right? Things like Bollywood and like the Chinese film market won't likely have to face the saturation of Hollywood movies within their market anymore, and they can start dominating within their own markets as well. What this means is that more likely we have meaningful Asian representations in those areas. Like any Asian movie scene or producer is going to make a better movie than an Asian American producer, right? Because they are always going to be pandering to white thing. So we don't need to appease those individuals. We think that there is a debate to be held on how to resolve representation problems in general. But for fuck's sake, let's at least acknowledge there's a problem.
I think
check it out, I'm on the internet now, man. Kelvin calls Kenneth's argument bizarre in his speech. He says that this argument is strange. But I think that the strangest argument, or the strangest frame that seems to come up from closing on, is that he thinks that every single person in the entire world now has been issued a gag order and can no longer say anything bad about Crazy Rich Asians ever. Madam Speaker, I refer you back to the motion which says that it is only the Asian actors who are the people who are not condemning it. Later on, I'm going to talk about why that's particularly important in the film industry. But you think that the vast majority of Kevin's, apocalyptic thing whereby all of the Asian people will uplift the movie until it cannot be immune to criticism, that like criticizing movies is illegal and shit. Like, I don't think that that's necessarily going to be the case. So let's talk about how this discourse actually more likely will happen. Right? We think that, first of all, they never actually defended the burden that Mitrun put onto them. The fact that the opposite of support is opposed, right? And he says that many people are going to, in Kevin's flow, he prefers that this tiny minority of people who really oppose the movie or go against his movie and criticize this and that, it's very bad, the Indian guy is security guard or whatever, right? And at the same time, in the same speech, he says that, so many people love the movie, there's overwhelming support, overwhelming love for this movie. I think that at that point, what he's asking Asian people to do is that all of the Chinese people on one side will say, I thought this movie was pretty good. And on the other side of the house, all the brown people who are like, yeah, bro, this movie is fucked up, it doesn't represent me properly, blah, 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 blah. And we think that's the kind of thing that is going to be necessarily bad for the movie market later. Kelvin tries to say that, oh, no, look, this movie is going to be successful anyway since so many people like it. But what he completely, neglects to consider is the fact that these movies also have got marginal gains, right? For example, the more money the movie makes on this movie, Crazy Rich Asians, the more budget they have for like Crazy Rich Asians 2, right? The more money they have, for example, like the more attractive that film or set becomes, and they get better actors and better talent for it. So you think that there's definitely a lot of marginal gain and benefit to be had at the point where Asians of all different ethnicities are supporting that movie, right? And we think that in the case where you have got, I don't know, like Dev Patel, Aziz Ansari saying Crazy Rich Asians really bad because it made me butthurt because Indians were portrayed badly in the movie, then what you do is essentially create this gulf and create infighting between like Asian people, right? We think that bandwidth is one that's necessarily limited, right? Because every, every tweet about how like this movie is fucked up and this movie this movie is bad, makes people less likely to watch that movie and makes money less likely to flow into the Asian market, right? We think that, what also hasn't really been engaged with your case was the fact that profitability is key to the expansion of Asian representation in the movies, right? We think that closing was like, I'll quickly focus on this issue of like how people are being portrayed in the movie later. But we think that the real problem is just a dearth of Asian representation on the screen overall, right? I know enough of us are like on the TV, right? Whenever I'm watching the Netflix and I see Asian guys, they always they got like a small dick, they can't fuck properly, they're a virgin, and it's fucked up representation also. So I think any step that we are taking towards making Asian people more prominent, on film or on screen is something that's necessarily positive. But the other thing is, that Kevin never shows why, Chinese people really owe something to Indians. Like they must be present in every single movie, right? Like it is something he's never actually proved. And in his world, the only kind of movie that seems to be acceptable to him would be literally like a documentary of like people walking on the street, like a really boring movie, right? We think that, when it comes to this type of big blockbuster Hollywood movies, you have to move in and have some action, bro. Because literally, right, this Crazy Rich Asians movie is about like 0.1% of people. Literally, it includes 99.9% of people because most people are not, yellow colored billionaires, right? But we don't see like the entire rest of the world getting really angry because we're not being represented. Because as Mitrun put it, this simply happens to be a movie about rich Chinese people. And if you go on the internet, you can probably find other movies about rich Indian people, about rich white people, or other different, kinds of people. So you don't see why necessarily like that exclusive portrayal is something that is particularly like harmful for people, right? Like what's the problem there? I don't think they were necessarily obliterating anybody's experiences, right? But next thing I want to talk about, I'll take you after that, is that this cast of Crazy Rich Asians, as long as talking about the movie, it's pretty diverse, right? You got Singaporean actors, you got like Malaysian actors, you got some girl from Korea who's also like in the movie or whatever, right? So you don't think that it's like exactly like they're all from China or they're all from like one country, Like it's really diverse within, those Oriental Asian people. And we think that in the future, as more money and more support flows into the market, like what Mitrun said, we could very well get other movies or like expand. I mean, the sequel for Crazy Rich Asians is China Rich Girlfriend, right? And now it's China people inside the movie. I don't know. India right next to China, if I know my maps right. So maybe like the movie after that, we have some Indian people as well. In fact, I think that, at the point where you have got this unanimous support for the movie and you get more Indian people also watching the movie, the studios know that, right? Let's not pretend. Studios know what race you are when you buy a movie ticket. Google knows what race you are. And when you buy a movie ticket, when you search that movie, the movie studios are going to know that people who are brown or like white or black people also like that movie. And that consequently the market is wider. So at that point, where that movie becomes accessible to many different types of people, or that the studio sees that these movies can be marketed for Indian guys as well or whatever, then that's good. Then they will presumably put in more actors as well to make more money up, right? So we think that this impetus where it comes to, we don't think that movies get sequels for being woke. Movies don't get sequels for being woke. Movies make more money when more people watch that movie and the studio has money to continue making movies, right? So we think that, Kevin's moral signaling or virtue signaling or showing people is something that's applicable to a very small minority of people. Let's get real. Not that many people live in Kevin's liberal fantasy. Most people don't really give a shit. if the movie looks good, the plot is interesting, they show some interesting shit, then I watch a movie, I don't care, right? And we think that the trade-off when it comes to like some marginal improvement where the Indian security guard in that movie now, I don't know, he wears a suit or he looks a little bit better group, isn't worth the trade-off of less people watching that movie and buying tickets for a movie. So if you guys want to see more of these Asian movies in Hollywood, then that's really a good thing. Alright? Please like and subscribe.
Please like and subscribe.
Alright. That is crazy debate.
So I think if you put support on the spectrum, right, you would have support on the far end here. And then you would have condemning on the far end here, right? But let's be clear, right? Anything that's not on this end is not supporting. Anything that's not on this end is opposing supporting, right? So you just have, or the burden on us is just to prove that there's no obligation on everyone to support, for every Asian actor to support Crazy Rich Asians. It doesn't call for everyone to condemn. It calls for some people condemning, that kind of thing. I'm not sure why they're asking every one of us to condemn. So that's one thing. But let's look at a few extraneous rebuttals that I have. So Kenneth places a very high importance on the fact that the movie is meant to be satirical, right? And as if it's very important. But if it's meant to be satirical, but you're really bad at being satirical, you're really bad at pushing the satire, very bad at showing the satire out for people to see, then there's no value to that satire that you want to show. I'm not sure. Crazy Rich Asians is really bad at satire, right? It's more of a show of opulence and not less of how ridiculous these rich Asians are. If it's satire, it's not doing a very good job. Then they want to talk about how movies just cannot be perfect. Yeah, they cannot be perfect. Maybe they don't deserve unequivocal support, right? That's the second thing that let's deal with CG a bit. I think the last thing that Jordan really wanted to say is that no one gives a shit. Right? So if no one gives a shit, good. Why do you have to support if you don't give a shit? You really don't give a shit, then you don't have to support. You have no obligation for you to support, right? Then money and airtime, I'll deal with that later. The first thing is obligation, right? Because you want to say that all Asian actors should do something, right? That implies some obligation that they have, right? No, this is what Gov needs to prove is that all Asian actors have an obligation to support Crazy Rich Asians, even if it doesn't further their interest, even if it doesn't represent them very much, right? Because let's face it, the only reason this notion is there in the first place is people actually think Crazy Rich is very, very representative for Asia, because there are a lot of Asian people in the cast, right? But the bar needs to be higher than that, right? It was representative to some Asians, so maybe your East Asian, your Singaporeans, your Chinese, Malaysians, they get to feel maybe represented, maybe they can feel some support, they can give some support. But if you want universal, unequivocal support for your work by being representative, you better be universally and unequivocally representative, right? And so the more reasonable thing, right, the more reasonable expectation or obligation to put on Asian actors or any actors at all is that you shouldn't be obligated to support anything that doesn't uplift you or your community, and in fact harms your ability to be casted, right? And that leads me to the first issue, right? Sit down. Does unequivocal support help a South Asian actor? right? What OG wanted to tell us was, oh, if all Asian actors support Crazy Rich Asians, the producers will see it, your casting agents will see it, they're more likely to maybe make Asian movies, they're more likely to scout other Asian actors. But the problem is that you stop there, right? You set the bar for Hollywood at Crazy Rich Asians, at a movie where almost all the cast is like East Asian. So it signals to them that it's enough, that just casting East Asian is enough. So what they're going to respond is that they're going to stop at East Asian. There's no incentive for them to expand it to a South Asian actor. And in fact, like oftentimes, as what Kelvin told you, it's easier for a Hollywood casting director to cast an East Asian, right? It's a model minority. There's no like bad stereotypes against an East Asian, right? As opposed to a South Asian man. Oh, he has a beard, he looks brown skin, maybe he's a therapist, maybe he's not. Like, I don't know. There's a lot of like bad stereotypes, whereas East Asian, there's none. So it's easier for East Asians and not as easy for a South Asian. I'm not sure why, as a South Asian, you have an obligation to support it, right? Well, let's also look at CG, right? CG want to talk about how if everyone support each other, you Indian, you go and watch a Chinese movie, Chinese go and watch Indian movie, you get a lot of support, very nice, got more money, got more airtime. But like, yeah, you can, if a Chinese person, you can go and watch the Hollywood film. I don't know why you have then an obligation to go and support, like, I don't know why you guys to support Crazy Rich Asian, especially as the earlier premise was set. Like, if you let Hollywood get away with just casting East Asians, like, it's just going to benefit East Asians, it's not going to benefit you as a South Asian. So, if the motion requires even South Asians to have an obligation to then support unequivocally this Crazy Rich Asian movie, I don't think we have managed to prove that. I'll take two.
I just have two questions. Number one, your lack of support is going to lead to the real world change that Kelvin wants, where all the Indian people get jobs, right? But secondly, when is it more likely that you're going to do me a favor or help me out, debate with me? When I say you're shit and you're not a good speaker, when I say you're amazing and I really like you.
So I'm not sure why. I'm not quite convinced of the benefits of collaboration. I'm not sure what this collaboration can bring, right? I'm not sure why this collaboration is valuable in the context of Hollywood making Asian movies. I'm not sure why that's valuable. Secondly, like, the motion is just obligation. You don't have obligation to support it. That's it. That's what I have to prove. That's what Kelvin had to do. That's about it. But thirdly, right, unequivocal support is bad for Asian American movies, right? As Kelvin has told you earlier. Because what CG wanted to characterize is that, oh, your white people still can criticize, but just your Asian people have an obligation not to. But the thing is, if it was bad, if the movie was objectively bad, and all your Asians blindly support, but your very credible white critics don't support it, they just say, oh shit, then your Asian actors will just look, order. We just look really, really stupid. But the thing is, at least on our side, there's room for improvement, right? And at the point in which they continue making improvements, they don't make bad movies continuously and die out, get killed off by the producers. Like, on a worst case scenario, why even if Hollywood stops making Asian movies, it's great. Because you, as a native Asian, you get to tell your own stories, right? You get not a whitewashed third generation American director. You pocket the money, not another Asian American, right? Because Hollywood is more likely to cast Asian Americans than a native Asian. So if it harms native Asians, it harms Southeast Asians, it harms South Asians, I'm not sure why all Asians have an obligation to support this. Thank you.